الله بالخير. 20 عاما مرت على غزو القوات الأميركية العراق. المبلغة كولين راولي العميلة الخاصة السابقة في مكتب التحقيقات الفدرالي أبلغت عقب هجمات 11 من أيلول سبتمبر عن مخطط الرئيس الأميركي آنذاك جورج بوش القاضي بشن حرب على العراق من دون الاستناد إلى معلومات استخبارية. اليوم تعيد المبلغة راولي قراءة هذا الحدث المفصلي وما تمخض عنه من حروب كونية شنتها أميركا بذريعة محاربة الإرهاب من أفغانستان إلى العراق فسوريا وصولا إلى أوكرانيا. هل تستر مكتب التحقيقات الفدرالي عن معلومات كان من شأنها منع هجمات 11 من أيلول سبتمبر عام 2001؟ ما الثمن الذي دفعه ويدفعه مسلمو أميركا جراء التجسس عليهم بعد هجمات أيلول سبتمبر؟ ما تكلفة حروب أميركا على الإرهاب منذ عام 2003 حتى اليوم؟ هل تدفع أميركا العالم في مواجهتها مع الصين إلى حروب نووية؟ ومن يحمي المبلغين اليوم في ظل محاصرتهم وشيطنتهم؟ نرحب بكم ونرى ونسمع أكثر من ضيفتنا كولين راولي العميلة الخاصة السابقة لمكتب التحقيقات الفدرالي FBI في البعد الأقرب. هذه الميادين وأنا زينب صفار، خليكم ويانا. Colin Rowley, American former FBI special agent, became a whistleblower about the FBI's pre-9/11 failures, warned the FBI Director Robert Mueller about the Bush administration's deceptive plan to launch war on Iraq, received the Sam Adams Award, continues to speak out about the perpetual so-called global war on terror. Colleen Rowley, salam and welcome to الميادين. This is the proximate aspect and I'm Zainab Al-Safar. So good to have you, ma'am.
Yes, thanks for me.
Always a pleasure. Well, in mid-August of 2001, you were Chief Division Counsel in Minneapolis. Your office received word about suspected lead to imminent attacks. Yet, the FBI denied you a warrant to search and verify your information until the day of the attacks. Today, after 22 years of 9/11, do you think the FBI did cover up information that would have prevented the attacks? Why did Director Mueller lie, as far as you know, Colleen?
Yes, and it's not only my opinion, but this has been verified through the official investigations that my whistleblower memo led to. First of all, the Joint Intelligence Committee inquiry, then the Senate Judiciary Committee's report, and finally the Inspector General of the Department of Justice, which after a couple of years and a couple, 300-400 pages, actually concluded that the FBI had mistakenly not connected, they had not connected the suspected terrorist in Minnesota, Moussaoui, with bin Laden and with the Chechen terrorist group. So this isn't just my opinion. This is the official report. And finally, just a few days ago, we had even more confirmation that it was due to a lack of sharing of information, not only inside, for instance, the FBI and other agencies, but also between the agencies. The CIA failed to tell the FBI that two of the hijackers that they had been following for over a year and a half had come into California. And finally, the 9/11 Commission actually concluded that it was a failure to share information with the public, not just these secret, the secret agencies, whatever, not between themselves, but also not sharing the information with the public, which could have prevented 9/11 or greatly reduced the impact.
Colleen, this begs the question, why?
Well, I think what you always have in any group, not just the government, is you're always going to want to cover up your own mistakes. And if you commit illegal actions, if you want to just see how this works as an example, this recent example of why did the CIA not tell the FBI that two of the suspected terrorists had come into California? Now, was this a nefarious plot? Well, it looks like they bungled. They were trying to flip these two agents to become informants, and that was wrong, by the way, because the CIA was not to conduct operations on U.S. soil. That was against the law. That was wrong. And therefore, when it came to be that these two became the hijackers, of course, no one is going to tell the public this when they mess up. And we're seeing constant this, and there's no accountability. Nobody in power wants to ever get accountability. So you're always cover up, and usually the cover up is worse because it enables future wrongdoing, and that's what we've had for 22 years.
Now, after 9/11 and the heated debate about Iraqi involvement in the attacks, you wrote a memo to Director Mueller, who was going along with the Bush administration's deceptive plan to launch war on Iraq, a country that had nothing to do with the attacks. How does the war against Iraq serve the industrial military complex and the national security surveillance complex, knowing that invading Iraq cost the U.S. $2 trillion directly? That's nearly $9,000 for each taxpayer in your country.
Yes, the United States since 9/11 has literally spent trillions. I think I've heard anywhere from $7 to $11 trillion on its wars. And that began with the first war on Afghanistan, then on Iraq. At one point, the war propaganda and misinformation from the highest levels was so bad that 70% of the American public believed that Iraq was behind the Al-Qaeda attacks. Okay, so completely opposite of the facts and the truth. And you're right, to this day, no one will even admit having lied to the American public about Iraq. None of the officials, the Bush administration will, oh, well, we just made a little mistake, but this was deliberate deception. And it was a campaign, by the way. All of the wars have been this way. What do? They enrich the military, industrial, congressional, intelligence, media, academia, and think tank complex, to the point now where the top 5% of the United States owns more wealth than over 50% of Americans. I mean, it's created greater disparity. And it's destabilized the United States.
How could the Bush administration get away with such extreme, unethical, unlawful measures taken? And since then, what were the costs and blowback on American citizens, of course, not to forget the credible estimates of the number of Iraqis killed since 2003 that total over 1 million.
Yes, the lack of accountability upon our highest officials that deceitfully started the war on Iraq allow them to believe that they could, quote unquote, make their own reality. And so since that obviously successful attempt at war profiteering and warmongering, it's just continued. We've had war after war the United States has launched, most recently the proxy war in Ukraine. Mm-hmm. And these wars do not benefit anyone. Certainly, Americans are led to believe that it's to bring human rights and democracy to the poor people of the world. This is the same type of hubris as the colonial powers, when they killed the Native Americans and the Indians to bring them religion. So you tell yourself you have a good cause and that it's worth it, as Madeleine Albright said, it's worth mm-hmm. 500,000 children's deaths if we can bring democracy. It's worth
in Iraq.
It.
Yes.
It's never going to be worth it, because you're killing people and saying that you're bringing them peace, but you're actually killing them. It's what they said in Vietnam. We have to bomb the village to save it. It's mm-hmm. the biggest lie in the world, and it's amazing that people believe it still to this day.
As a former insider, Colleen, what is the dark side of this so-called war on terror? What are other dark sides of this so-called war on terror?
Well, part of the dark side is the fact that the United States often will exploit and use even extremist groups, including even back when the United States wanted to use its geopolitical power to entrap the Soviet Union. They then armed the Mujahideen, which basically became Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. Later on, the groups that the United States will empower in order to, quote unquote, fight for as proxies, and there's some vulgar terms for this. I don't want to say those terms online, but there are some vulgar terms for the use and exploitation of people around the world in order to topple governments, to conduct regime changes. Mm-hmm. And that's the dark side. And the truth is, here Americans think, oh, we're fighting terrorism. Well, no, actually, in fact, and even with the attempt to use different groups in Iraq, in Syria, for our own purposes. Right. And even though these were extremist groups and groups that were committing murders and all kinds of atrocities.
Sure. On Wednesday, recently on the 19th of April, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. launched his presidential bid to challenge President Biden in the 2024 Democratic primary and vowed to begin unwinding the American empire. He questioned President Biden's motives in Ukraine and said it appeared the administration wanted to prolong the war. Kennedy called for a scaling down of the U.S. military presence around the globe and that he would try diplomacy and offer concessions to Russia, including an offer to, quote, withdraw our troops and nuclear-capable missiles from Russia's borders. Do you think this is plausible, Colleen? And what about Trump's post on Truth recently, pledging to correct the justice system if elected president? How is the empire making a false promise for national security?
You know, several years ago, I painted an anti-war banner that said, it's a big orange banner, and you can find it on my Google, etc. And it said, end American empire before it ends us. Mm-hmm. And I think, of course, you can condense the Robert F. Kennedy and even Trump on occasion, certainly Tucker Carlson, all of those figures that talk about trying to bring back, come home America is another term for it. Come home America. Stop engaging in these regime change operations abroad and trying to be the hegemonic controller of the world. You know, every one of Trump and RFK, Tucker Carlson, they're all attacked. Tulsi Gabbard is another one. They're all attacked by the establishment, the war profiteering establishment. And today I just heard they took Tucker Carlson off the air. I don't know if that's true or not, but I just heard that. So they did this with Trump. They made up the Russiagate lies, then the Ukraine gate lies. And unfortunately, I think that Robert F. Kennedy is going to be, he's going to be seeing the same thing. He's a tough guy, though.
The sins of Guantanamo are still with us. This is a new report by Simon Hirsch on Substack. In this latest revelation, Sy wrote, quote, "The larger question regarding constitutionally is that the courts are not in a political position to say prisoners at Guantanamo are entitled to due process. It's not about law," unquote. Hirsch compares today Guantanamo to Abu Ghraib, a mystery left unsolved, and their sins are still with you as Americans. Colleen, in 2002, you received the Sam Adams Award given to an intelligence professional who has taken a stand for integrity and ethics. How can this happen under the Constitution of the U.S.? You believe, ma'am, that Guantanamo was selected deliberately. Why? Why so? And what is the logic behind keeping it open?
The erosion of constitutional law and rights, including the loss of due process, even including the United States engaging in torture. Honestly, all of our Bill of Rights, pretty much across the board, has been eroded. And why? I think it was Cicero that says, the first casualty in war is the truth, and the law has to take a back seat. The John Yoo, when he was writing all of those torture memos, wrote the same thing. When we're in a war, we can't follow the law. We have to say now we're engaged in emergency martial law. So yes, Guantanamo, 21 years, and it's horrible. It even serves as a recruiting tool for enemies of the United States. They just repatriated an Algerian who was held for 21 years. And now there are 30-some detainees still left on Guantanamo. But it's a serious black eye. And I would say, besides the indefinite detention without trial, without charges, etc., of the people in Guantanamo, most of whom were innocent, by the way. Mm-hmm. Initially, almost all of the people in Guantanamo were just in the wrong place in the wrong time. But besides that, what about drone assassination? That's mm-hmm. without due process as well. They just concoct a kill list. Obama concocted kill lists. There was no due process. Mm-hmm. There was no trial. And then they were just murdering people. So it's very sad. The United States should not be seen as a leader when it comes to international law, because they violate the law when they want to, and yet they seek to enforce it on weaker countries.
Colleen, mm-hmm. since your retirement, you were stressing the need to strike a balance between giving intelligence agencies the ability to conduct rigorous investigations of dangerous individuals and protecting the civil liberties of the public. By embracing the state secrets privilege, is the Supreme Court giving the government every incentive to continue invoking state secrets to conceal abuses and thwart accountability in the U.S. courts today?
By the way, that state secrets privilege was founded erroneously upon a case that basically the government lied. And later on, they didn't find out for 30 years afterwards. It was an aluminum case where there was a spy plane that went down. And they later found out that the government had lied about it. Okay, so the whole privilege was based on deceit. So it needs to be reined in, greatly reined in. There may well be a case from time to time where it could be argued state secrets privilege, but at least the judge should review the material.
Right. What price did the Muslims of America pay and still do for spying on them after the September 11th attacks, Colleen?
Well, it's like what happened during the COINTELPRO era, during the Vietnam War, when the FBI and the CIA were out of control. They infiltrated groups, they spied on on anti-war groups. They spied on Martin Luther King Jr. and, in fact, even threatened that he should commit suicide. I mean, these are atrocious atrocities that were committed in the past, and we thought that that was history. We never thought it would come to play again. And after 9/11, they used it as an excuse for this mass surveillance and also mass detentions at times. And it's all backfired. It's all backfired. It was all wrong.
Right. Now, in 2021, Daniel Ellsberg, the man who leaked the Pentagon papers, revealed that the government had drawn up plans to attack China with nuclear weapons during a crisis over the Taiwan Strait in 1958. President Biden campaigned in 2020 on a promise to declare a policy of no first use of nuclear weapons. With tensions rising today between the US and China, public distrust of the government running high, do you think that the leaked Pentagon document is a deliberate act as it serves the propaganda of the war with China?
Are you talking about these recent leaks by Jack Teixeira?
Sure.
No, I actually think in that case it was not deliberately leaked. I think he was just trying to impress his gamer friends with, top secret information that he knew. However, the result is the same, even though I don't think it was deliberately leaked. I think the problem is Daniel Ellsberg has tried all these decades is that we are right now on the eve of destruction, nuclear destruction. And it's a scary moment. It's because the administration thinks they can win nuclear war. And when you have all of these nuclear bombs on hair trigger alert, the biggest mistake of Biden has made thus far, not keeping his promise to remove the first strike ability of the United States. That's his biggest problem. And right now, it just takes a spark, just one little mistake or accident, and the whole world is over. And so, yes, I think we just have to hope that we don't have nuclear war, because right now, people in the administration think they can win. They don't believe in mutual assured destruction. They think somehow they can launch nuclear bombs and win wars, which is the most dangerous thought in the world.
Right. Now, the number of people with security clearances to view classified material has expanded. Who protects whistleblowers today in light of their demonization and consequently smothering their efforts to unveil the truth and the heart of the matter?
Right now, I would say from the time I actually got some protection as a whistleblower from 4 senators that wrote to the FBI director and the attorney general that I should not be fired. And I also got some protection from the media. That no longer exists. The media in the United States has gone full boat with the military-industrial complex. And they actually help track down Jack Teixeira. They helped the FBI track him down. So it's like there's no protection at all, other than if you're, for instance, perhaps with a Seymour Hersh, if you have a really good media source who, like WikiLeaks actually too, that can protect you as your identity. I've written an article, Secrecy Kills. If there had been a leak that 2 hijackers had come into California, they would have probably prevented 9/11. It's the secrecy that is killing. It's not the openness and the transparency.
The unveiling of the truth. True.
Yes.
Yes, power is always dangerous. Power attracts the worst and corrupts the best. Colleen Raولي, former FBI special agent, thank you very much, ma'am, for sharing your views. It was thrilling talking to you.
Thank you very much.
Always a pleasure. إذن الحكومة الفدرالية الأميركية استثمرت ما يقرب من 8 تريليونات دولار في الحروب التي أعقبت هجمات 11 من أيلول سبتمبر، وفقا لتحليل أجراه مشروع تكاليف الحرب في جامعة براون. وقد تم إنفاق نحو 1,100,000,000 دولار من هذا المبلغ على ما يسمى جهود مكافحة الإرهاب التي اتخذت آنذاك أشكالا مختلفة، مثل الوكالات الحكومية الجديدة وبرامج المراقبة والتخفيف من المبادئ التوجيهية طويلة الأمد لإنفاذ القانون، والتي تؤدي في كثير من الأحيان إلى تصنيف المسلمين الأميركيين على أساس الدين أو بلد الأصل، في انتهاك للحماية المنصوص عليها في الدستور. على الرغم من أنه من الصعب تحديد عدد الأميركيين المسلمين الذين تأثروا جراء هذه الإجراءات التعسفية، نظراً لأن مثل هذه البرامج الحكومية غالباً ما تكون سرية أو مصنفة، فإن المراقبة تركت جيلاً من الأميركيين المسلمين يكافحون مع مشاعر عدم الثقة والخوف. فهل تحول هؤلاء الأميركيون الذين ينبغي أن يتمتعوا بنفس الحقوق والواجبات إلى مواطنين غير مرغوب فيهم في مكان يسمونه الوطن؟ من كل الميادين، سلاما وتحية، في أمان الله.